Merge Tactics is Clash Royale's first ever new game mode, not a modifier of an already existing game. No towers, no bridges, no log bait. This is a completely new game. Supercell wants to slowly evolve Clash Royale into a hub of different games, similar to that of Fortnite and Roblox. Merge Tactics is the first step in making that ambition a reality. And in this video, I'm going to talk about Merge Tactics and my overall thoughts on the mode. Additionally, towards the second half of the video, I'll be talking about the predecessor of Merge Tactics, Clash Mini, and compare the two games. The gameplay of Merge Tactics is very simple and straightforward. If you've ever played Teamfight Tactics, it's pretty much a bite-sized, bare-bones version of that. You'll be competing against 3 other players and you'll have to draft cards from a shared card pool to build the best team of troops possible. Additionally, once you reach around 300 stars, you'll unlock modifiers that add special conditions to the gameplay. After each draft phase, you move on to the battle phase, where you just sit back and watch your troops duke it out in a duel against your opponent. Some people may not like this because there's a bigger emphasis on turn-based strategy than real-time strategy, unlike Clash Royale. Initially, Merge Tactics can come off as completely RNG, with little to no room for growth. But that's not completely the case in my opinion. I will say this up front though, there is RNG in Merge Tactics. Skilled and experienced players may argue otherwise, but the harsh reality is that there are RNG elements all over the game. What cards appear in your draft selection shot, for example, what modifier you'll receive, etc. However, as you start to understand more of the game's mechanics, you start to discover ways to be more in control of your draft. I think the gameplay is really good, especially when you start to understand it more. However, I feel like it would really help if the game teaches you some of the fundamentals. What do I mean by that? Well, the game kind of just throws you in without getting you ready. The game just assumes that you know how an auto battler works, and I feel like that's unhealthy because it alienates players who are new to the genre and want to experience it for the first time. I understand that Merge Tactics isn't the main game, but even a side game should provide some sort of tutorial for how to play. It's a tad alarming that a good amount of players aren't even aware of some of the game's basic mechanics, like how there are 4 copies of each card in the pool, making 4-star units impossible to obtain through normal means, or how you can bench troops that you don't want to use in battle instead of selling them. I feel like if the game does a better job explaining these rules and actually showing us these rules, new players will be able to understand the game and its strategies better. That's not the only thing though. I know I praised the turn-based elements of Merge Tactics gameplay, however, something I've noticed is that in order to really be considered a top player, you have to be insanely fast. Each round you have very little time to do a lot of things, and especially in top ladder, it feels like the game rewards you more for being fast than it does for being strategic. Not saying that strategy becomes non-existent at a certain point, but higher up, a strategic player is more likely to lose against a fast drafting player. Merge Tactics feels like one of those games where you can have above average game knowledge and awareness, but lose more often than win solely because you're not drafting fast enough, at least compared to the competition. It kinda makes other aspects of the draft phase, such as positioning and benching troops, less meaningful in the grand scheme of things. However, I feel like this is an issue that doesn't really have much prevalence until you reach Gold 2 or something. One of the main complaints I've heard about this game is that the gameplay gets too repetitive. Basically, you open the game, pick troops, battle, pick more troops, merge troops, battle, merge troops, battle, game over, do it all over again. The game can feel rather repetitive at times, and while I do understand why people think that, I personally disagree for the most part. Maybe I'm not high enough in trophies to feel that burnout, especially since I'm kinda hard stuck in the low to mid 3000s. But honestly, I think there are 2 things that help make each game feel different in my opinion, even if the core gameplay is the exact same. Firstly, the deck building, or rather the lack of. You don't take a pre-made deck into battle, unlike in Clash Royale. Instead, you draft cards as the game progresses. I'd argue that each game, you're likely going to be building up completely different comps depending on not just what's available in the draft, but also what the modifier is for the game. The 4 stars mod, for example, doubles the amount of cards in the draft pool, so you're more likely to find cards that better complement your team. The trait dummy mod gives you a dummy that starts you off with 2 random traits, making it easier for you to obtain certain synergies. Yes, I agree that the game is the same structurally, but the different modifiers and drafting makes most games a new experience. In fact, speaking of draft, I just mentioned that the game's draft system allows each game to be unique along with the modifiers. However, in my honest opinion, there are a couple of cons in regards to draft-based deck building. Remember when earlier I said that games after a certain point are decided by who's the fastest drafter? Well, the issue is prevalent mainly because of this kind of deck building. Putting a huge emphasis on drafting takes away from the other strategic elements of the draft phase, and again, since you have very little time to do a lot of things per round, you won't do well if you aren't quick. Games feel like they're a competition of who has the better time management rather than being a competition of who is more skilled. Additionally, let's keep in mind that because of drafting, you have to hope that the RNG doesn't kick your butt and give you cards that are useless to you. You'll have games where you're going to lose solely because you have bad RNG. That's just the facts. Sure, a skilled player will know how to work with bad RNG, but even those players sometimes fall victim to it. I've read some Reddit posts about some people not liking merge tactics and even quitting it. And one of the main reasons why is that the game feels too RNG reliant. And at first glance, yeah, I can't really blame them for thinking that. Which stinks because there are legitimate ways to work around the bad RNG, even if said ways don't always work out. I'll be completely honest, when I first heard that you couldn't build decks in merge tactics, I was kinda confused and kinda pissed off. I really want to stand here and tell you guys that the game's drafting is absolute garbage, but honestly, I really can't because even pre-made deck building has its own problems. Look at the main Clash Royale game, for instance. Plenty of people are upset that matchmaking just feels like an elaborate game of rock, paper, scissors, and that whoever's deck counters the other players will win more often than not. At least with drafting decks, you can actively react to other players, draft by drafting counters to their composition, or bench something that they need and gatekeep higher star tiers. That's something that you can't really do in Clash Royale. So, as much as I want to hate drafting, I have to admit it has its pros and cons. Alright, so I talked quite a bit about the gameplay of Merge Tactics, but what about everything outside of that? Well, Merge Tactics isn't a heavily monetized game, which is a great thing, don't get me wrong, but I feel like with some of the cosmetic systems in place, this game has potential to encourage player spending in a non-predatory way, unlike the main game. The rulers, for example, both rulers, Royale King and Spirit Empress, are accompanied with 2 skins that you unlock by leveling them up. I can see the team going even further with this and allowing us to use gems to purchase more premium skins down the line. By more premium, I mean skins that aren't just recolors, like the ones that are in-game now. One of the few monetization techniques that isn't hated by gamers these days is cosmetic-based, because they don't affect gameplay in any way. Rather, they're just a means to flex your characters. I feel like if Merge Tactics is going to be monetized, this is the best way to do it, through cosmetics. Also, throwing this out there, they need to make it to where you can emote in-game. Lobbies feel so lifeless sometimes because there's no player interaction whatsoever. Anyway, moving on. In addition to their skins, each ruler has 2 special attacks that trigger when they win a round. These attacks are referred to as confetti in-game. There are currently 4 confetti cosmetics in the game. 2 for Royale King and 2 for the Empress. Both the King and the Empress will have a starter confetti ready to use when you unlock them, and when you level them up to level 3, they each have a custom confetti that looks more premium in design. Again, love to see more confetti in the future. Imagine how funny it would be seeing some of the spells in the main game use this confetti, like a rocket confetti or a goblin barrel confetti. I think it'd be pretty cool. Also, who's to say that they can't take the cosmetics even further? I think it would be really cool if the team makes it to where you can customize the board that you play on in-game. Like instead of playing in the Royale Arena, how about a sci-fi based game board, or a summer themed board, or an arcade themed board? The team can even take it a step further and change the sound effects and music depending on what board you're playing on. Those are just a few examples. Again, it'll bring more liveliness to the game, especially since right now the games don't feel lively at all due to the lack of player interaction. Also, something that kinda pisses me off is the card levels. Not necessarily for the rulers, but for the actual troops. It's honestly saddening to see that your card levels in Clash Royale will impact the strength of your troops in Merge Tactics. Especially since the stats only change by like 2%. Like, what's the point? You might as well remove the stat discrepancies altogether. Instead, make it to where higher troop levels can contribute to cosmetic-based rewards. Said rewards don't even have to be exclusive to Merge Tactics. They can be banners, mastery badges, even titles. I kinda can't believe that a title system still hasn't made its way to Clash Royale. There's so much potential and opportunity to flex with those. Again, I'm just throwing out ideas. Please keep in mind, guys, that Merge Tactics, as far as I know, is being managed by a completely different team, so there may be limitations on some of the ideas I'm suggesting. But overall, what do I think about Merge Tactics? Well, it's not perfect. No game is, to be fair, but Merge Tactics is pretty far from perfect. There are some things I genuinely don't like about the game. There are plenty of things that can be improved upon. However, I can't lie to you guys, I've been addicted to this game ever since it launched. I've played the game every day, claimed my daily lucky drops from playing Merge Tactics every single day. Heck, a week after the season started, I finished my entire pass, and I'm at a point where I can only open one lucky drop a day from the pass. I've played Merge Tactics a bunch, and while I'm not the best at it, I don't even think I'm considered good, to be honest. It's just been a bunch of fun, and I'm glad to be playing it. But now we're gonna take a turn, because this is the part of the video where I'll be shifting away from talking about Merge Tactics as its own game, and instead I'll be comparing it to Clash Mini. For those of you guys who were around during the Clash Mini days, or if you've never experienced Clash Mini and wanted to hear just how similar it is to Merge Tactics, this segment is for you guys. So, March 2024. A sad time period for Clash Mini players because the dev team of that game announced that it would be getting shut down. Clash Mini, for those who are unaware, was an auto-battler game somewhat similar to Merge Tactics, except it was its own standalone game. Clash Mini was a blast. I played it ever since it first came into beta. It was awesome to be part of that community while it lasted, and when I looked on YouTube the day it was announced it would shut down, I saw the video on my recommended page, simply titled, "Thank You," and a thumbnail showing the characters from Clash Mini waving goodbye. I'm not gonna lie to you guys, I almost cried when I saw the thumbnail. I didn't even click on the video, I just sat on my desk kinda at a loss for words. A game that was worked on for over 2 years, a game that cultivated such a strong community, a game so charming, a game with a seemingly promising future, is going away. Then I watched the video and I started tearing up as it got towards the end, when the screen faded to black with the white text that simply said, "Thank you." Then the video ended. It was a devastating loss, and on April 2024, Clash Mini shut down its servers for good, becoming nothing more than a fond memory. It was a tough goodbye, but at the time, there was still hope for the game. The devs announced that Clash Mini would be getting shut down, but they would work hard to bring the Clash Mini experience into Clash Royale, which is what Merge Tactics is. So, now that I've played Merge Tactics, what do I think? It's not Clash Mini. Simply put, while yes, in my Merge Tactics TV Royale reaction video, I was really excited about the game and was optimistic, but is it worthy of being considered the Clash Mini experience? No, it's not. In many ways, it feels like a completely new game, but in the same genre. Merge Tactics, again, I want to set the record straight. I'm having an absolute blast with Merge Tactics. I genuinely love the game. But calling it the Clash Mini experience, in all honesty, is an insult to what Clash Mini was. Clash Mini was a game with so much more charm, so much more polish. It had its own identity despite using the Clash IP. The visuals and UI represented that of a toy store with the chibi-like models of the troops resembling little action figurines. The different game boards you can play on all added layers to the game's overall aesthetics. The skins of the different minis were absolutely charming. Again, I know I'm using the word charm a lot, but that's just because it was charming. Merge Tactics, in comparison to Clash Mini, feels so corporate and bare bones. The graphics, while they're not bad, don't come close to the visual appeal that Clash Mini had. It sucks because since it looks very similar to Clash Royale, Merge Tactics feels like it'll never have an opportunity to be known as something more than just a game mode inside Clash Royale. It just doesn't have that appeal that makes it pop out and stand out at its own thing. Additionally, the gameplay feels very different compared to Clash Mini. In Clash Mini, there were no rulers, but instead there were heroes that actively battled on the field and had their own set of mechanics that impacted the actual battle phase. So did the other troops, which were known as minis at the time. When you upgraded them, not only did you get an upgrade in stats, but it came with a special ability depending on what upgrade you selected. Clash Mini also didn't have draft-based deck building outside of the Rumble game mode. You bought your own deck in the game, which again, you could argue that it's no better or worse than drafting, but I'm bringing this up because considering that a fundamental gameplay mechanic like that didn't make it into Merge Tactics, makes me question why it's being called the Clash Mini experience. Before you guys comment about me being a Clash Mini glazer, which I am, thanks for pointing out the obvious, I do admit, Clash Mini had its own flaws. The game wasn't perfect. It was often unbalanced and monetized very poorly in one way or the other. However, once again, we're talking about Merge Tactics being the Clash Mini experience, not the Auto Battler experience, the Clash Mini experience. As an auto battler, it definitely passes, but as the successor of Clash Mini, it totally fails, which is pretty disappointing. Maybe I set my expectations too high, but I was expecting more of that Clash Mini charm to make its way into Merge Tactics, and it's just not there. Again, Merge Tactics is a super solid game on its own, but it's just not the Clash Mini experience we were promised over a year ago, and that sucks. But you know what? It's time for me to move on. In fact, it's time for us to move on. Clash Mini is long gone now. It's just not coming back. And at this point, it's better to just enjoy what we have than mourn over what we lost. When I saw the Clash Mini subreddit, they were pretty pissed about Merge Tactics. I finished watching the TV Royale thinking that people were going to love it and celebrate the mode, but instead it's a lot of people calling it trash and absolutely hating on it. Just a lot of people dissing the new mode, talking about, we waited over a year for this? And while I expected some people to not like it, I wasn't expecting damn near everyone to not like it. The backlash it got caught me so off guard that I just had to distance myself from the subreddit until it calmed the heck down. People weren't even able to play it, and they weren't shy about ripping the new mode to shreds. It's not as bad now though, but the majority still complain about Merge Tactics. Honestly, to an extent, I get it. Like, I've made very clear, we were promised the Clash Mini experience, and what we got simply isn't the Clash Mini experience. However, there's a popular saying that goes like this: comparison is the thief of joy. Again, we can be upset about Merge Tactics not being Clash Mini all we want, but honestly, if we keep doing that, we're just gatekeeping ourselves from enjoying the game for what it is. And what it is a pretty damn good game. It needs a lot of improvement, sure, but that's what community is here for. Give feedback to the devs, play the game for what it is, and who knows, maybe some of that Clash Mini magic will slowly integrate itself into Merge Tactics. I'm very optimistic about the future of Merge Tactics. I've played the game every single day ever since it launched, and I'm going to continue doing so for a while. I mean, how else am I going to make it to Diamond? That's all from me, guys. I know this video was a lot, so thank you guys so much for staying tuned in. Let me know what you guys think about Merge Tactics in the comments below. Do y'all agree or disagree with my points? If you enjoy the game, let's work together to make it something big, something genuinely meaningful, because right now I can't stop playing this game. I'm having way too much fun with it. But for right now, I'm signing off. Thank you guys so much. Take care of each other and love each other. Peace.